Now it's time for the last word with Lawrence O'Donnell. Have a great night.
President Obama woke up to this headline this morning in Denver, as did the rest of us who woke up in Denver this morning. Then guess who decided to go out and do something about this headline today? That's right, President Obama. And we have breaking news from Mitt Romney, who just appeared on Fox News and tried to rewrite his comments about 47% of Americans.
When I got on the stage, I met this very spirited fellow who claimed to be Mitt Romney.
A new Mitt Romney took the stage last night.
Mitt Romney's move to the middle,
possessed of entirely different policies.
First of all, I don't have a $5 trillion tax cut.
Really?
I don't have a tax cut.
Is that so?
I'm going to lower rates. I want it 20% across the board. Across the board for all Americans. 20% across the board. By 20%. I don't have a $5 trillion tax cut.
What?
I don't have a tax cut of the scale that you're talking about.
Mitt Romney just plain lied.
If you want to be president, then you owe the American people the truth.
We saw a conservative Mitt Romney in the primaries.
I will repeal Obamacare. I will repeal Obamacare.
Now we're seeing a more centrist Mitt Romney.
The best course for health care is to do what we did in my state.
So it's almost like an Etch-a-Sketch.
He's now saying he would not cut education.
I agree. Education is key. He says we need more firemen, more policemen, more teachers. I reject the idea that I don't believe in great teachers. Did he not get the message of Wisconsin?
Who was the real Mitt Romney?
Mitt Romney is the Ron Jeremy of political campaigning. Every day he's in a different position.
Wouldn't say any programs he wanted to cut in spending.
I'm going to stop the subsidy to PBS.
Except for PBS. Yeah. He'll get rid of regulations on Wall Street, but he's going to crack down on Sesame Street.
I'm going to stop the subsidy to PBS.
Thank goodness somebody's finally cracking down on Big Bird.
Because I like PBS. I love Big Bird.
Elmo's got to watch out.
Elmo very sad.
I think I get the last word.
With 33 days until the presidential election, moments ago on Fox News, Mitt Romney said that he was completely wrong when he said that 47% of Americans are hopeless losers. Sean Hannity asked Mitt Romney what he would have said if President Obama brought up the 47% comment last night.
What would you have said if he did bring it up?
Well, clearly in a campaign with hundreds, if not thousands of speeches and question and answer sessions, now and then you're going to say something that doesn't come out right. In this case, I said something that's just completely wrong. And I absolutely believe, however, that my life has shown that I care about 100%. And that's been demonstrated throughout my life. And this whole campaign is about the 100%. When I become president, it will be about helping the 100%.
Here is what Mitt Romney said after Mother Jones revealed Romney's 47% remarks.
It's a question and answer, as I recall, about the process of the campaign and how I'm going to get the 51 or 52% I need. And I point out it's by focusing on those folks that are neither in his camp nor in my camp. Of course, there's a very different approach of the two different campaigns. As I point out, I recognize that among those that pay no tax, approximately 47% of Americans, I'm not likely to be highly successful with a message of lowering taxes. That's not as attractive to those who don't pay income taxes as it is to those who do. And likewise, those who are reliant on government are not as attracted to my message of slimming down the size of government. Well, you know, it's not elegantly stated. Let me put it that way. I'm speaking off the cuff in response to a question, and I'm sure I could state it more clearly and in a more effective way than I did in a setting like that. And so I'm sure I'll point that out as time goes on.
Joining me now, MSNBC's Alex Wagner and Chris Hayes. Alex, so at the first round of this, he went the Rush Limbaugh route and defended the comments, basically, explained them a little bit. Rush Limbaugh said to him back then on his radio show, this is such a golden opportunity. This could be the opportunity for Romney and for that campaign to finally take the gloves off and take the fear off and just start explaining conservatism, which Romney was just doing. Then tonight to Sean Hannity, he says, well, that comment, I was completely wrong.
Yeah, you know, Lawrence, the word that has popped into my head in the course of the last 24 hours is lobotomy. Either Mitt Romney wants the entire American public to have a lobotomy, or is proposing that they get one because that's the only way they're going to believe in the things that he's saying, or he himself has had a lobotomy, which is the explanation for this pivot that is miraculous. I mean, I think what struck me last night was that there wasn't even the attempt to defend his record, his policies, his prescriptions that he's put out there on everything from, you know, turning Medicare into a voucher program, to his tax plans, to his position on education funding, to, you know, any number of things that he's run on. I mean, he just totally whiteboarded everything.
Chris Hayes, sorry, Alex, I was going to say, Chris, a presidential candidate never wants to have to say that sentence. I was completely wrong, because it certainly opens up, as Alex is suggesting, what else are you completely wrong about? But what choice does Romney have at this point in how to respond to that 47% comment?
I think Romney is relishing his newfound freedom. I mean, I basically think what happened was he was a captive of the right wing of the party. Anytime that he deviated in any way, they would smack him down. There was a line when he embraced Romney Care in Massachusetts. When his spokesperson did, they said, we have to house break the dog. That was what the Republicans said,
yes.
You know, beat the dog, bad dog. It took until conservatives got so desperate about his chances that now he's completely freelancing. He's a totally free man. If there is something, Lawrence, you like, maybe he's for it. If there's something, if there's something 60% of the American people like tomorrow, maybe he's for that. We just don't know. We will, in the next 33 days, he is completely untethered, and whatever's out there that might prove appealing to the mass of
It's like a fruit basket. It's like a fruit. It could be grapes, it could be bananas, it could be strawberries, it could be a $17,000 deduction, it could be a $50,000 deduction, it could be a $25,000. Just pick a number, make up a number.
If it's delicious, he will eat it.
Well, we now know what the prepared response was for last night to the 47% question. It was simply going to be complete disowning of it in exactly the same way, Alex, that he, and I got to say, I don't think any of us saw this coming, he disowned the notion of doing a $5 trillion tax cut, which has been a fundamental principle of his campaign until last night.
It is amazing, though, that Mitt Romney, who has been so burned by YouTube, here is now proposing that everyone's going to forget the thing that he's been saying for the last 18 months. I mean, there is tons of footage where he is proposing a 20% across-the-board tax cut, which costs $4.8 trillion. I mean, there's no mystery there. The idea that in the last 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks of this campaign, he's going to be able to whitewash everything that he said is ridiculous.
Let's listen to how the president talked about the new Romney tax position, if that's what it is, on the campaign trail today.
When I got on the stage, I met this very spirited fellow who claimed to be Mitt Romney. But I know it couldn't have been Mitt Romney, because the real Mitt Romney's been running around the country for the last year promising $5 trillion in tax cuts that favor the wealthy, and yet the fellow on the stage last night, who looked like Mitt Romney, said he did not know anything about that.
Chris Hayes, the president found his voice on that one today.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting to me is that early on, the campaign made a strategic decision about whether they were going to attack Mitt Romney as a flip-flopper, as someone you can't trust because he'll just go wherever the political winds take him, or as essentially a hard-right ideologue, as someone who's bound up with the unpopular Republican Party. And Mitt Romney, they chose the latter. They chose going at Mitt Romney as this out-of-touch plutocrat who's going to carry the torch for the hard right of the Republican Party. And he aided them in doubling down on everything. And every message from the "We built this convention" to the fetishizing of the job creators in the leaked video reinforced that. Now, he's shaken the Etch-a-Sketch, and now he's decided, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to go for whatever it is. And so the question is, they now have to pick a new way of attacking him.
Well, I think they've picked it today. Let's listen to more of what President Obama said about the real Mitt Romney today.
Whoever it was that was on stage last night doesn't want to be held accountable for what the real Mitt Romney's been saying for the last year. And that's because he knows full well that we don't want what he's been selling over the last year. Governor Romney may dance around his positions. He may do a tap dance and a two-step But if you want to be president, then you owe the American people the truth.
Alex Wagner, please help me get the image of Mitt Romney dancing out of my mind.
You know, Lawrence, I will say this. There's been this sort of flush of ardor for Mitt Romney in the 24 hours since the debate because they think, oh, my God, he can really do it. But I don't know how excited the conservative base is going to be in the long run, which is to say in the next couple weeks as we really unpack these sort of positions that Mitt Romney has newly adopted, which is to say embracing parts of Obamacare or maybe not giving a tax cut across the board, or maybe, hey, maybe Pell Grants aren't such a bad idea. I mean, they have systematically tried to placate the conservative base for a long time because they know they're very, very restive. It'll be interesting to see if the Republican Party remains as united as it is today in the next couple weeks.
Chris, I think what we're seeing today is the Obama campaign and the president saying you can't trust him. No matter what he says, you just don't know what he's going to say tomorrow.
Yeah, and that I think is a new line of attack until Election Day, particularly if Mitt Romney persists with this newfound freedom in terms of selecting whatever policies appear to be popular in the moment. And in fact, it's something they laid the groundwork of last night, and I think the jury's out on this, actually. This idea that he's not providing enough details, I am genuinely curious as to how effective a political attack it is. I think it might be, or it might not be. But that seems to be one of the things the president wanted to hammer home last night, and one of the things in the post-debate spin room and so forth is this idea that he essentially is a kind of crypto candidate, that he is keeping secret what he wants to do, and there is something suspect and untrustworthy about keeping secret what you want to do. I think it's an absolutely accurate way to attack Mitt Romney, because the maddening game he's playing, the shell game he's playing with his policies, is such that he's keeping them hidden. The question is how much that registers with voters.
Let's listen to how Rush Limbaugh explains President Obama's debate performance last night.
Obama, in addition, has been shielded from any kind of opposition his whole life. He's been protected. If he got a C at Harvard, somebody gave him an A. If he needed to get into Harvard Law, somebody greased the skids. He's had the way paved for him, and he's protected, and he's shielded, and he has a teleprompter, and his words are written for him.
Now, Alex, I know Rush sounds like an expert on how things work at Harvard Law School, but he actually did not go to Harvard Law School himself and actually could not quite get through one semester of college himself. And so he is just imagining through his bottomless pit of hate about Barack Obama that, of course, Barack Obama couldn't possibly achieve academically anywhere, and everything was given to him.
Yes, a subtle indictment. Of course, the African-American guy got everything sort of given to him, a sort of indictment perhaps of affirmative action and maybe a mobility in American society. Rush's comments, unsurprisingly, are reprehensible. The notion that the president has not fought for and won the achievements that are fairly impressive throughout his life is yet another attempt to paint him as outside the mainstream of America, not one of us. You know, I mean, it's despicable. And the undercurrent there is this notion of laziness, which is also, I think, a very freighted and weighted term as we talk about people of color and also as we talk about people who are not like ourselves. You know, the Republicans are using this. This is their moment to dance around the maypole and throw a bunch of confetti in the air. I am still unconvinced that this actually moves voters any significant way, one way or the other. And there are, of course, Lawrence, 2 more debates.
And I would say this. The most dangerous thing for the Republican Party, and has been throughout this campaign, is believing what they tell themselves. And what they tell themselves is that Barack Obama is essentially an affirmative action case. This is incredibly widespread on the right, and it's genuinely believed on the right that this is someone who essentially has just skidded by. He's been given everything. And if they keep thinking that, they're going to have a wake-up call, I think, in the second debate.
Yeah, I think they forget that Hillary Clinton, among others, ran against him for that nomination last time, and it wasn't easy. And yes, Alex, we do have polling that indicates absolutely nothing happened last night. Today, Barack Obama's up 1 point and Mitt Romney's up 2 points, so that there's a change in the gap of exactly 1 point as a result of 67 million people watching them debate for 90 minutes. That's as close to nothing happening as you could ask for. Chris Hayes and Alex Wagner, thank you both for joining me tonight.
Thanks, Lawrence.